This is the IranWatch. Welcome to NUFDI's new podcast. In this program, along with my colleague Andrew Ghalili, we are going to unpack everything Iran, from the propaganda from the regime to its war efforts to its stooges in the West and what they are saying. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So today we're going to talk mostly hijab. So we wanted to start with that because you see a lot right now on social media, in the news, in the West and Iran about women not having to wear hijab in Iran anymore. We see videos being posted, etc. Before we get into that specifically, let's talk a little bit about the actual situation in Iran. Give us a detail of what's happening. Obviously the regime has not given up compulsory hijab. So why are we seeing these videos? What's going on? What's the actual situation?
To get there, I think I would want to first start with setting the scene, giving the context of where the hijab enforcement comes from and what has been the history of Iranian women fighting against this. So since the inception of the Islamic Republic, oppression of the public has been one of the core elements to the identity of this regime. A core element to it is also the enforcement of the Sharia law, from lashing people for drinking alcohol to enforcing women to cover up their bodies, their hair. And it didn't start yesterday, it started literally in 1979 with the Islamic Republic coming to power. And immediately from the get-go, there has been resistance against this regime. In 1979, women took to streets for a whole week and protested against this whole system of oppression that was eroding their hard-earned rights.
Right after the revolution?
Yes. And the answer was violence. When you talk with women from that generation, over the years, they have been beaten up, they have been arrested. My parents remember that this scene on one of Tehran's university campuses, that one of these Hezbollahi guys, staunch supporters of the Islamic Republic, having this blade out and slashing at women who weren't properly covered up. So the type of violence has always been there. It's nothing new to the Islamic Republic. And the enforcement has been there throughout the years, but it has changed form. For instance, when I was young, a child in Iran growing up, my mom, when she was going out, when she was going to work, she was allowed to wear a select number of colors. It wasn't just about how much of her body she was covering, it was about even the colors she was allowed to wear. And all of them were dark
Right, you
blue,
couldn't wear
dark.
bright colors?
No, absolutely not. And the thing is, one of the side stories that usually is missed in these conversations is that this enforcement of clothing on the population wasn't just limited to women, it also affected men. Men wearing ties were beaten up on the streets. Men wearing short sleeve T-shirts. There were Hezbollah, shorts, absolutely. But they had people stationed on the streets with buckets of paint and brushes that painted the arms of men in short sleeves. So we are talking about a regime that, as a core element to its DNA, has subjugation of the population. Yes, a core part to its identity is Sharia, but more important to this regime is having control on all aspects of life. But through the years, women have pushed back. When you talk with women from my mom's generation and generations after her, you hear stories of confrontation with police, with Basij militia forces, with plainclothes, with hijab enforcers. The name has changed over the years, but the opposition, the fight has always continued. And it has brought us to the point that right now, the regime has been pushed step by step back through the years. And I'm not going to just even jump to the 2022 Women Life Freedom movement. Even before that, the regime was pushed back. You see TV presenters on state media controlled by the the ideological core of the regime, with women presenters wearing pink, dressed in not the usual abaya, but in skirts. So the regime itself has been constantly pushed back, and they argue that hijab, they see the whole battle over hijab as a front line, that the line of the battle has changed where it is drawn for the regime. And then we get to the Women Life Freedom Movement of 2022. The Islamic Republic Security Forces, its morality police, harasses, arrests, beats up this young woman, Mahsa Amini, and she dies in police custody. And that triggers something in the nation, something that goes beyond class, beyond religion, beyond tradition. It riles up the whole nation. This unjust killing that no one can justify. Even the staunchest supporters of the Islamic Republic were like, this one was too bad. And people poured on the streets to the degree that was unprecedented. When you look at the number of cities and provinces involved, the number of people were on the streets, it was the largest protest movement against the Islamic Republic in its history. So that pushed the regime one step back. So that's the context. Then you ask about where we are right now.
Yeah.
So a lot of us are hooked on social media. A lot of us also have family in Iran and talk with them about how things are. After the Women Life Freedom Movement, a lot of women, a lot of men as well, who were showing solidarity in any way possible, were taking to the streets in case of women without the headscarf. In the past, they used to do that in specific parts of major cities and some more blue-collar parts.
You mean in general, not as a protest?
Yeah, no. Yeah. But they always had the shawl around their neck because, if the morality police arrives, when they see the van out there, when they see cops, when they see Basij forces to cover up. But after Women Life Freedom, they were like, we have crossed this line. We are not going back. And they didn't. And they got beaten up. They got harassed on metros and everywhere. But they were unrelenting. And it has grown. But then we come to 2025 and the 12-day war. The Islamic Republic, for the first time, actually faces the adversary that it had vowed to destroy and erase off the map in action, and it had nothing. Yeah. Its air defenses were obliterated. Its top military echelon was taken out in a span of hours. That whole experience, that's being so beaten down in a few hours without being able to respond, pushed the regime to reconsider some of its behaviors. Not as in, I'm going to be a good boy, I'm going to recognize human rights, I'm going to give women the rights that are their rights. But we are scared. We are facing this adversary that might strike us at any point, so we need to evade other types of crisis. We don't want to cause another incident like the killing of Mahsa Amini. That's the regime's thinking. So the morality policing in general has decreased. You don't see the morality vans on the streets anymore. But the thing with women in Iran is that they are still, every time that a woman goes on the streets in Iran without the hijab, wearing a t-shirt, showing her arms, these are acts of courage.
Not only that, but even without the morality police, there's other methods of enforcement. In the same way that during Women Life Freedom, they started by shooting protesters in the eye in the street, and when they realized that wasn't working, they instead started arresting them, executing them behind the scenes. In this case, so the morality police isn't monitoring the streets as much anymore, but they have, surveillance cameras that they've gotten from China, which monitors all of its citizens in the street for a social credit score, which they'll use to monitor women. They'll do things like, I mean, we can get into the misinformation now, but we'll see videos of women in the streets of northern Tehran or one street performance, and then so they'll let that happen. That video spreads, and then they'll go arrest everyone who participated or who was seen in that video. So it's not that enforcement has died down completely. It's just that they've shifted methods of enforcement to avoid causing a trigger. Right?
Absolutely. And they have shifted from the street type of oppression to the examples you said, and also transferring the pressure on businesses. Hundreds of cafes and restaurants and businesses have been shut down, put under
for
pressure.
allowing women to be in there without hijabs.
So they are outsourcing the oppression. We also are seeing reports coming out of universities that students are being denied the right to continue their education because they have a case related to hijab violence. They are not being allowed into banks. Banks are refusing to offer services to women because they are not covered up properly. So the oppression has shifted.
And that's important because, especially during Women Life Freedom, I mean, there's an infamous story in the New York Times that said the morality police has been disbanded. And it was framed, this is in 2022, it's framed as though the people won, the regime gave up. And obviously that was nonsense at the time. But that's why it's, when we say morality police is going away, it's important that we clarify that doesn't mean that this is over.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's still an act of courage to be walking around, and it's an act of civil unrest that continues. So we saw that during 2022, that kind of story. Obviously, that's not new to Iranians. Western media pushing a regime narrative that helps avoid, mass unrest in some way. But it was pretty heavily pushed back on at the time by all Iranians who realized that what was happening. Why are we seeing it again in 2025? Why are these videos working? Why are we seeing even our friends posting it as if, how is it not clicked yet that and to emphasize this point, we can go into also how core hijab, I mean, you talked about a little bit how core hijab is to the regime and why they likely would not give it up unless they were acknowledging the end of their system.
So I'm going to start from the end. The whole Sharia law, enforcement of Sharia. I earlier touched upon this. It is not just about Sharia, it's about imposing the state's will on the people. And through hijab, they were controlling what half of the population can wear or not wear. That's insane. When you look at any example of totalitarian states, this level of control over individual bodies of a population, you seldom see that level of control. So the regime, it will go down in flames before willingly gives up this level of control.
And that's what hijab symbolizes.
But at the same time, we are talking about, yes, it is a crazy ideologically driven regime that wants to do all these things. Wants to control the population, instigate violence across the region, do this and that. But at the same time, we are talking about a very calculating system. The Islamic Republic always calculates risk and responds accordingly. It's not random. It's not a madman. Yes, they are a bunch of psychopaths, but they are calculating psychopaths at that. And this level of control is something deep-rooted in the Islamic Republic's DNA. If it gives up this line in the sand, it will have to give up a lot more. Because the Iranian people, they never wanted this regime. When they voted for it almost 5 decades ago, they didn't even know what they were voting for. And it broke the whole nation. It broke the whole country. It destroyed the country. And they want it gone. And the regime knows the first serious crack, the first meaningful concession is going to have a domino effect on the whole regime. That's point one. Point two, you ask about people, especially those who are based in the OS, and are literally reproducing and resharing the propaganda that regime
with
produces.
Sometimes good intentions.
Yes. So I put them in 3 categories.
Okay.
The first group, they don't know. They don't understand geopolitics. They don't understand the Islamic Republic's security apparatus. Some of them are unfortunately involved with Iran work, sitting in Western capitals, advising governments on these issues. But a lot of them, their whole interaction with Iran has been a short trip, touristic, to the country, visiting a grandparent at best. A lot of them don't know the Persian literature. A lot of them don't even understand the structure of power within the Islamic Republic. In their lives, they probably have had interactions with Islamic Republic intelligence officers because they are allowed to move around in Western capitals with impunity. But most of them don't even know that they have been in the room.
So these are the people that would benefit just from education?
Yes.
Okay.
The second group are people who are ideologically entangled with the Islamic Republic.
These are kind of hopeless. These are bad intentions.
Yeah.
We're not countering them. You just, they're influencing that first group, and we have to do it better.
Exactly.
Okay.
They see the West as the empire that should be destroyed. They talk about when they live, a lot of them actually live in Western capitals, from New York to DC.
And work as journalists.
Journalists, think tankers, university professors.
Of course.
And their whole identity and career is built on the grift of anti-imperialism. So they're hopeless. They have decided that whatever the United States and its values are, they are going to oppose it. Even human rights. When you talk with them, when you talk about women's rights in countries like Iran or Afghanistan or anywhere else, they would tell us that you're looking at the problem from a Western standpoint, as if a woman's right to determine to wear or not.
We had the Massa Act, which was strictly about human rights and top officials in Iran, and they even still oppose that. Our counterparts. That's purely human rights. There's nothing
political there.
Yeah. So and that was, I think, very exposing. Very revealing.
That's the second group. The third group, when Masoud Pezeshkian was elected as president, he brought back a specific team with himself that were out of power for a couple of years when Ebrahim Raisi was the president, who died in a helicopter crash, and which Iranians celebrated and really enjoyed that incident. Another story, another time. But when Pezeshkian came back to power, he brought back in a specific team of technocrats. Exactly. Technocrats that carry the label of reformists, moderate, whatever. And a lot of them come from the intelligence background, worked inside the Islamic Republic's intelligence ministry, and they specialize in one thing and one thing alone. And that's public messaging and public manipulation. That's all they are good at. And they are good at it.
Yeah.
And they have started pushing the message. They have started spending money on it. Not going to name names, but people know who we are talking about.
Yeah.
Suddenly, overnight, people who jumped on the women life freedom movement and tried to wash their sins of the past away, suddenly switched side and started talking about what boils down to appeasement, what boils down to engaging the Islamic Republic as a normal state again. So there is also this type of bad actor that goes wherever the money goes.
We'll go a little bit deeper into that, which leads us nicely into our next episode, which will focus on reformism and reformists and how people in the West are spreading that message. Just to conclude this now, though, moving forward, two parts. One, what do we do? What does the community do? What's the best way for us to educate that first group you mentioned to keep them or put them on our side? And two, what should the outside world be looking at or looking for moving forward on hijab specifically? I mean, if videos of women walking around Tehran aren't evidence of a win, what is? What would be?
So you asked two questions I'm going to answer in three parts.
Okay.
So the first thing is Iran is a country that is occupied by a theological rule that has ruined this nation's resources, has taken them hostage, and instigated violence across the Middle East, claiming thousands of lives outside and inside Iran, from Syria to Lebanon to Israel to Tehran. We have lost so many lives. But at the same time, the Iranian people have constantly been on the forefront of fighting against this regime. And yes, the Islamic Republic is still there. They are still in power. But over the past 50 years, the Iranian nation, every morning that they have woken up, they have gone to work and came back and partied with their families, enjoyed good music, gathered together, lived in the face of a regime that is an enemy to life. They have been winning. Every day that this nation has survived has been a win. And this comes on the back of cycle after cycle of protest movements. We have been on the streets, we have paid the blood price for it, and we have won. We are still alive, and we are still fighting. When you're facing an adversary bent on your absolute destruction, survival is a win. So Iranian people are winning. We will reclaim that homeland. Iran is going to be eventually free. When that happens, I don't know. But we are going to continue. That's point one. Point two, on the issue of hijab. Yes, women are still on the streets going about their lives without the hijab. And each of these videos are acts of courage, acts of bravery. And we got to remember that bravery is not an absence of fear. Bravery is not the absence of risks. They know what they are risking, and they are increasingly willing to pay the price for it. And the regime knows that in face of a population that is willing to pay the price, it only has one option, and it's retreating. So Iranian people are just marching forward. The world got to catch up. What was the second question?
No, you kind of answered. I mean, what should people outside look for in Iran moving forward? But
we got to catch up.
Yeah.
We are talking about a brave nation that has been unrelenting in its fight. The diaspora, we got to get our act together. We got to honor this nation that is risking everything for liberty. We got to mimic their courage, their unity, their knowledge. And you also asked about how we can convey this message better. Each of us have a smartphone. Start producing content, start pushing back against the propaganda, talk with your family, talk with foreigners about what you're seeing, what you hear from someone like me, if you don't like me, someone else. Get the information, get the actual information and spread it. Make people see the Iranian people's courage and get them to help them achieve what they want. And it's simple. They want freedom.
No, I think that's absolutely right. And I mean, we have plenty of resources for people to do that, including your daily newsletter that you produce. So we will continue to try to help on that end.
Thank you very much.
But completely agree. That's all I have for today.
Before wrapping up, a shout out to IranWatch Daily. We have a daily product. It's a newsletter, everything Iran related. Mostly the focus is on security and international affairs and whatnot, but whenever there is a major human rights story, we also cover that. So check NUFDI's website, get hooked on the good stuff, and see you soon.
Yes, see you for our next episode.